haunted realm of the unknown. If the eerie silence of the night ever made your heart race, then you found the right place. Today, I bring to you tales of chilling truth, of those who faced their deepest fears in the dark, solitary hours. Before we plunge into the abyss of tonight's tales, if you find solace in these stories, please leave a like, comment your thoughts, and most importantly, subscribe. We're on the journey to reach 100 brave souls in our community. And as you help me grow this channel, I promise to be your companion during those long, sleepless nights. Story 1. The Night I Was Followed Home. I've never really shared this story outside of my close circle of friends because it sounds so crazy. But here goes nothing. It was about 2 years ago. I'd recently broken up with my boyfriend of 3 years and found myself living alone in a small apartment in the city. My job involved a lot of late-night work, so I'd often come home way past midnight. One such night, as I was walking back home, I noticed this car that seemed to be trailing me. It was weird because it wasn't speeding up or anything. It was just there. Whenever I'd take a turn, it'd follow. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, but after the 4th or 5th turn, it became apparent that this car was deliberately following me. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, but I tried to stay calm and act like I hadn't noticed. I decided not to go straight home, in case the driver had malicious intentions. Instead, I went to this 24/7 grocery store. I remember thinking the lights would deter whoever it was. I stayed in there for maybe 30 minutes, buying time and some snacks to seem normal. When I finally left, the car was gone. Relieved, I started the 10-minute walk to my apartment. But halfway there, I noticed headlights behind me again. It was the same car. Panicking, I quickly went to a nearby diner. The waiter must have seen how distressed I was because he asked if everything was okay. I told him someone was following me. He offered to call the police, but I declined. Maybe I should have agreed. After another 30 minutes, and with the waiter's assurance that the car had left, I started walking home again. This time, I took a longer route, weaving through various alleys and streets, occasionally looking over my shoulder. I finally reached my apartment building. Heart pounding, I hurriedly unlocked the main door, went straight to my apartment, double-locked it, and peeked through the blinds. The street was empty. I sighed in relief. Later that night, around 3 a.m., I was watching TV to distract myself from the earlier events when I heard a soft knock at my door. I froze. My apartment building had a security system, and only residents or their guests could enter after using an intercom. I crept to the peephole. Outside, there was a man, probably in his 40s, wearing a baseball cap that cast a shadow over his face. He knocked again, this time louder. My brain screamed not to respond, so I backed away slowly. Then my phone buzzed with a notification. A chill ran down my spine when I saw the message. "I know you're in there." Frantically, I called the police and told them someone was trying to break into my apartment. They said they'd send someone over immediately. The knocking became more aggressive. I hid in my bathroom, clutching a hairdryer as if it was some kind of weapon. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, I heard sirens, followed by shouting. After what felt like an eternity, there was a knock at my door again. It was the police. They told me they had arrested the man. The terrifying revelation The man had pictures of me on his phone. He'd been tracking me for weeks, taking photos from a distance when I was at work, with friends, and even through my apartment window. He'd found my number by somehow accessing my work records. To this day, I'm grateful to that waiter and to the swift action of the police. But the trauma of that night lingers. The idea that someone can become so obsessed with you out of nowhere is the stuff of nightmares. Now, I always make sure to double-check my surroundings and never underestimate my gut feeling. I hope the horrors from our previous tale have settled, dear listener, but don't be too at ease, for as the night progresses, so does the intensity of our tales. This next true story might seem familiar, an inconvenience many of us have faced: the simple misplacement of keys. Yet, when the shadows grew longer and night cloaked the city, it took a haunting twist. I present to you, I lost my keys, but it wasn't just me inside my apartment. To whoever's reading this, I just wanted to share something horrifying that happened to me. Maybe sharing it here will help me process it or warn others. 3 months ago, I moved into this new apartment complex. It's not the fanciest place, but it was what I could afford. My days were pretty uneventful. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. But one day, I made the idiotic mistake of losing my apartment key. That night, when I got home from work, I realized I didn't have it. It must have fallen out of my bag or something. I was mad at myself, but I thought, no big deal. I'll just call the maintenance guy. I had seen him around the complex a few times. He was quiet, not really chatty, which I preferred. I rang him up, and he was surprisingly quick to arrive. He had this odd smirk on his face, which I attributed to my own embarrassment about losing the key. He told me he'd need to change the lock, which seemed excessive, but I wasn't really familiar with these things, so I just went with it. The new key he handed me looked worn out, like it had been used a lot, but again, I brushed it off. That night, I was exhausted and crashed into bed pretty early. But in the middle of the night, I woke up suddenly feeling like something was off. You know that feeling when you're not alone? Yeah, that. My room was dark, but I could make out a silhouette standing at the foot of my bed. Panic washed over me. Thinking quickly, I pretended to still be asleep. The figure moved closer, and I could hear the soft sound of breathing. It felt like an eternity, but eventually, the figure left. I waited a few more agonizing minutes before grabbing my phone and calling 911. When the police arrived, they didn't find anyone inside, but they did find evidence that someone had been there. Footprints and slight disturbances in my living room. What chilled me the most was that there was no sign of forced entry. Whoever it was had a key. Remembering the recent lock change, I grew suspicious. I shared my suspicions with the police about the maintenance guy, and they decided to pull the surveillance footage from the complex. What I saw on that footage will haunt me forever. The maintenance guy had entered my apartment multiple times over the past few days while I was at work. He would linger around, going through my things, and even lay on my bed. But what shook me the most was the footage from the night of the incident. It showed him entering my apartment late at night, staying for a good hour, and then leaving just minutes before the police arrived. The surveillance caught the whole attack. I barely escaped with my life. The police arrested him soon after, Apparently, he had a history of stalking women in various apartment complexes he worked at. I shudder to think what might have happened if I hadn't woken up that night. I'm now living with a friend, still trying to process everything. Please, always double check who has access to your homes. I learned it the hard way. We've journeyed together through tales of lost keys and uninvited guests, each story adding another layer to this tapestry of the unknown. But dear listener, the night is not over, and its deepest mysteries are yet to be unveiled. Our final tale for tonight speaks to the fears we all held as children, of being left alone in a space too vast and echoing with imagined dangers. But for one teen, imagination and reality blurred on one unforgettable night. Prepare yourselves for Home Alone at 14, the night I'll never forget. I was 14. It was an average night around 9 p.m. My little cousin and I were at his house. I was babysitting for the night while my mom and aunt were shopping, and my dad and uncle were at the movie theater. As we sat there, I felt really strange. Something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it, so I just kept watching TV with my cousin. The feeling persisted, so I got up and walked to the back door to lock it. When I returned through the kitchen, I saw the source of my unease. In the window was a decrepit, homeless-looking man, just staring in, focused on my cousin, protective mode engaged. Pretending not to notice the man, I told my little cousin that we needed to go upstairs because our parents would be home soon and wouldn't want him staying up late. I took him upstairs and put him to bed, fully aware there was a man outside with unknown intentions. At the time, I was about 125 pounds and 8 inches height and played volleyball for my school. If I remember correctly, I went downstairs and straight to the kitchen, grabbing a meat tenderizing hammer. I turned back to the window where I'd seen him earlier, but he was gone. I rushed to the front door to ensure it was locked. Both the deadbolt and the knob were secure. I then hurried back upstairs with my hammer, went into my cousin's room, and sat down in front of the door. When he asked what I was doing, I replied he didn't need to worry and should keep his head low. I called the police and then my dad and uncle. The police said they'd take about half an hour, while my dad and uncle were 45 minutes away. Then I heard a window shatter, followed by the sound of heavy boots on the main floor. I told my cousin to stay calm, hide under the covers, and remain silent. The sounds of the intruder moving about downstairs were chilling. Clutching the hammer tightly, I waited. About 5 minutes later, I heard the boots ascending the stairs. My heart raced, especially since my cousin's door was just 10 feet from the staircase. I listened as he opened the doors to my aunt and uncle's room, then the bathroom. Eventually, he made his way back downstairs and opened the basement door. 15 minutes later, the police arrived and stormed the house. It turned out the intruder had escaped from a mental hospital 1 province away. We've wandered together through the shadowy realms of fear and the unknown tonight, each tale more chilling than the last. Could you feel the cold fingers of the stories brushing against your soul? If these tales made your heart race and your skin crawl, show your appreciation. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let's amass a legion of 100 souls, all drawn to the haunting allure of our shared darkness. On those nights when the silence is deafening and every corner of your room hides a lurking shadow, remember my voice, guiding you through the abyss of your deepest fears. Until our souls intertwine again in another dark tale, sleep, if you dare.